Bob's Wood Shop. I'm making a number of cutting boards, among other things, and that's what you see right here. It's going to be a tumbling block pattern, and I have all the little pieces glued up and wrapped really, really tight with rubber bands. I don't know how many I've done so far, but there's a lot of them, about halfway through. So I thought I'd go over real quick how these things are made. First of all, what you want to do is you want to measure your stock. I started off with a little over an inch square, perfectly square all the way around. Then what I do is I set my table saw blade at 60 degrees. I use a Wixie gauge on the right hand side of the blade, and that gives me 30 degrees. And what you end up with is these little diamonds. And what you want to do is, the first one that you cut, you want to measure that length. In my case, just happens to work out to 1 3/8. And then you want to set your blade 1 3/8 away from your fence. And that'll give you 1 3/8 on all three sides. Make a couple test cuts first, is what I usually do, and because you want them all to match up, like so. And then you can take your other one, the last one, and you fit it in there. And you end up with 3 perfect 30-degree angles. And when you lay them out, you got to be kind of systematic. You should set yourself up a little workstation. That's what I'm doing here. And what I start with is I start with my walnut one, and because all the 3 pieces is going to be walnut, cherry, and hard maple. So I start off with my walnut, with the walnut at the top and the grain going this way. Then I sit it down and I take the maple and the cherry. I put the cherry on the left and the maple on the right. Make kind of like a chevron, so the grain is going perpendicular to each other. And then I mate them up in there. And if it's a little bit off, there's little fuzzies on the corner, I got myself a little sanding block here and tacked some sandpaper to a piece of plywood, which is nice and flat. And I just go around and knock all the little fuzzy edges off. Okay, so that's how we start off on the assembly part. But it's probably really wise to make yourself a number of test pieces first. Make sure that every single surface is identical to the next surface all the way around, same distance. So then what I do is I get them set up, and I get it fit like that. You see them like that, and I split them up. I take some glue, put a little glue on this thing, and it takes a lot longer than a traditional cutting board, even a traditional end grain cutting board like checkerboard design, doing the individual blocks. And there's a way to get a complete end grain board instead of cutting them like this. This is not an end grain board. This is a face grain board. I like that because it defines it a little bit more. Keep a wet rag handy, and then all you do is just stick your pieces together, get a good friction fit in there first, squeeze your little bit of glue out. If you don't want to get your workbench messed up, it's probably a good idea to put something down, but just that friction fit, if you've got good angles, they'll kind of suck up to each other. Orientation is correct. Now what you got to do is you take yourself some rubber bands. I had a lot of trouble finding them, believe it or not. I tried a hardware store, I tried a dollar store, I tried the pharmacies, I tried a grocery store, and the only thing that they carried was the little tiny rubber bands like this, and then we're an assorted pack, and you get a couple of good ones in there, but not enough to do this. So what I did was I stopped off at the post office. So I know that they got a lot of rubber bands. They use millions and millions of rubber bands. They throw them away. They're all over the floors. The reason I know this is because I was a maintenance manager, facilities manager for the post office for a lot of years. After I was a mechanic, I got into that. But anyway, then you want to take another one, get it tightened up. Got to get them pretty tight so that you get some. Once you see glue squeezing out, then you know you're probably in the ballpark there. This type on glue it's stronger than the wood itself, even when you use a regular clamp. With the beam clamps or whatever kind of clamps you may use. You don't have to work terribly fast. This glue stays set up, or it stays okay for a while. And then just kind of squeeze them in there, get them nice and level. Push your rubber bands down on the corners. Make sure they're not going to pop off, and that you got them together. And I work on a wet rag, and this way I make sure that the side seams, it's not too much squeeze out so that the rubber bands don't stick to them. But there's another one, and only about 20 more to go. But what I do is when I get bored with this, I go over and cut out some of the pattern for the blanket chests that I'm making. On the Chevrolet, I cut out the Lexan panel. If you watched any of my other videos, you would see that. And but I'm going to switch over there now because I've just glued up about 3 or 4 of these, 4 or 5 or whatever, and I'm getting tired of doing it. So time to take a break. There we go. I don't know how many are there now, but after they're all dry, and I'm going to give them overnight to dry. But after they're dry, I'll go around and I'll have to sand all 6 sides and fit each piece there, and then clamp that up. You can use bigger rubber bands to clamp that up, or if you use put 2 boards at 90-degree angles, and then put another board up here, another board over here. You can put equal pressure on your bar clamps, and that'll pull them in there good and tight. But you really got to watch that these guys don't slide around too much on you. So there it is.